All right, welcome back, everyone, to Strange Planet Podcast. And for this week, as we all know, season 46 of America is coming to a close, and we are slowly entering season 47, which is likely to be the final season. So, moving forward with that, we have more information about Trump's atrocious picks here. Rook, I guess you can enlighten us here a little bit about what's going on with his attorney general choice, Matt Gaetz.
Well, as you probably heard already, Attorney General is no longer Matt Gaetz. It's Pam Bondi.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Pam Bondi, we might get to her later, is one of, another Trump sycophant. So Pam Bondi is actually somewhat qualified for the position because she was Florida's attorney general for about 8 years, I believe. Whereas Matt Gaetz has no experience whatsoever leading a attorney general's office or being a prosecutor. He has no idea what he's doing. He barely practiced law. I think he practiced law sort of for 2 years, maybe. But other than that, he is inexperienced as an attorney, and he is going to lead, or he was tapped to lead the Justice Department, which is a department full of attorneys who have the important duty of upholding our nation's laws. Now, of course, being unqualified is one thing. We expect that from Trump in terms of picking lesser qualified individuals. We've had experience with that before. But on top of that, he also was the subject of a pretty serious investigation, or a series of investigations, both by the Department of Justice, the department that he was tapped to run, as well as the House Ethics Committee, which is a bipartisan committee. It's half Republicans, half Democrats. That's, I think, if it's not the only committee, it's one of the only committees where it doesn't matter how many Democrats or Republicans are in the House. That committee, the Ethics Committee, has to have an equal number, such that you have to have bipartisan support to move forward on anything. Which is why I guess they chose not to, as a committee, release the ethics report on various activities alleged to have taken place. Matt Gaetz was not only was he investigated for trafficking, an underage girl across state lines, paying her for sex on multiple occasions using Venmo. But he also, and this is on the record from Republican colleagues, he showed them cell phone videos of his sexual exploits.
Wow.
So this guy is really a piece of work. And for him to lead the Department of Justice would have been a travesty. It would have basically made a mockery of our justice system.
Entirely, yeah.
And so he is now stepped down from his House position, and in hopes of getting sworn in as Attorney General so he could make this all go away. But he couldn't even make it that far because even Republican senators were like, come on, dude. Come on.
Right?
Matt Gaetz, like, he burned enough bridges with Republicans in his own party. Remember, he was behind the movement to oust former Speaker McCarthy from the speakership. And a lot of people didn't like him for that. They're cool with MAGA Mike now, Mike Johnson. But you know, they really didn't like how he was sort of a traitor to the Republican Party. And so, a lot of people in his own party don't like him. He's kind of a dick. Um, and so it was going to be very hard to push this through. And this is actually probably the best outcome for Trump since he, actually already made the decision to nominate Matt Gaetz. Withdrawing that nomination now makes Gates's baggage go away, at
Hmm.
least with respect to the Trump administration. With respect to Gaetz, it doesn't necessarily go away. There's still going to be questions about him, but now he's out of the limelight. He's not going to be attorney general. He's not going to be in Congress. And so I want to make it very clear that we should not let him get away with this.
I
Okay.
was just gonna say, yeah.
Um, there are there's a report by the House Ethics Committee that has not been issued to the public. There's testimony from witnesses who say that they witnessed the acts that he is accused of committing. And so while we're not necessarily going to get to see that in uh open hearings for the attorney general nomination, we should, as the public, we paid for that report,
Right, right,
we paid for that investigation, and so we should know if the president or the future president nominated someone. I'm pretty sure he knew about this report. Like, you don't just nominate someone without knowing, their dirt.
right.
It's a lot of it. And
Then
I'm sure,
again,
well, yeah, I mean, if
yeah.
there's do their homework, it's Donald Trump.
Exactly.
But
He's a fucking
but
scumbag anyway.
we have to assume that, I mean, obviously he knew about these allegations. They weren't secret. Obviously, he knew about the House committee's ethics committee's work in investigating him and that this report was coming. And so we have to assume that Trump had knowledge of what's in the report. Like, we just have to assume that.
Yeah.
And so for we should know exactly what was in that report so we would know what was, what did Trump discard and not take into consideration when making this decision, this irresponsible decision to nominate Matt Gaetz for the post. I mean, I think that as the public, we are owed that report, and people should demand it.
Do you think we'll actually see the report? Do you think it'll happen?
Well, I mean, whether we'll actually see it or not depends. I mean, like I said, the committee is half Republicans and half Democrats. And if those Republicans, if one of them doesn't, flip, then we're never going to see the
And
report.
it's over. Yeah.
Now, there's also the issue of, whether the speaker, Mike Johnson, can suppress the report as well. Speaker Johnson doesn't want the report out. He's made that very clear. And so whether it comes out officially, probably not anytime soon. The Democrats would probably need to regain control of the House in order to make that ethics committee report come to life. So we're
Hmm.
waiting at least 2 years before we
Right.
see it, but
So it's
we
on the
will see it
shelf.
unless they destroy it, and that's probably very hard to do because there's probably copies of that report in Democratic hands as well, since it's a bipartisan committee. Um, we will eventually see the report, whether, and now it doesn't really matter in terms of the nomination. So Matt Gaetz has, at least 2 years to, like, just sort of chill. Um, Trump is probably going to pardon him. Um,
Probably.
that's that's probably going to happen. So as far as any state crimes that may come up, yeah, I mean, if he is found to have engaged in sex with underage girls and paid them for it, that is, the federal crime was the trafficking,
Right.
but you know, paying for prostitutes still against the law
Right.
in under state law, um, and statutory rape still against the law
Right.
under
Because
state
there was
law,
minors involved. That's right.
and depending on which jurisdiction it happened in, there may not even be a statute of limitations for at least the statutory rape part.
Wow.
So yeah, in a minimum of 2 years, Matt Gaetz is going to probably be in a little bit of trouble.
Right. Just, it sucks. You
Um,
got to wait this long.
it
You know what I
does
mean? Because of
suck.
the situation. Yeah. Because if that was
Now,
anybody else, they'd be fucking locked up by now. You know
right
what
now,
I mean?
if the incident took place in Florida, there might be an issue because Florida, of course, is a red state, and who knows, the governor might just pardon him.
Right.
So
Right.
we don't really know his, uh, you know, criminal justice future, but at least we can rest assured that he won't be leading our Department of Justice.
Right. So that's at least a kind of a good thing in the long run, at least. My next question I was going to ask both of you guys here too, actually, but I think it's kind of rhetorical at this point. But I was going to say, do you think he should be locked up? But then again, the president elect should be locked up, the convicted felon. So I mean, you know what I mean? So
Well,
we're in a weird situation here, man. Like,
well, we also learned that the Judge Merchan, in the New York case, he has completely so before the election, he said, "Oh, well, we're going to wait until after the election to do the sentencing," because he was already convicted of his 34 felony counts in that
right,
case,
right.
right? And so
Hmm.
he wanted to say he was like, "Oh, well, we don't want to give any impression that politics has influenced this sentencing." And it's like, well, if you're postponing the sentencing until after the election, that kind of in and of itself is catering to politics.
Right.
um like, why don't you just sentence him like you would any other criminal defendant who was found guilty of these 34 felonies?
And that's not even including the other ones that we haven't even seen yet. The 11,000 votes and all that. You know what I mean? Remember the
11,000.
find me at that 11,000 votes?
Okay, yeah, but that's a
And that's
different.
something different. Yeah.
But no, I'm talking about the ones he was
Yeah. The
convicted of
ones we know already. Yeah.
and was set to be sentenced on in August, and then it was postponed until after the election. And then he said, "Oh, I'm definitely going to decide this week," even after Trump was elected. And then he postponed it again. And then now it's like postponed sort of indefinitely. And he's asking for a brief from the defense, Trump's defense, to say, well, do you think we should just throw out this case completely? Should we set aside the verdict in the interest of justice? And so they're going to submit their brief in support of that idea, and then the government will, submit its own brief opposing that.
Hmm.
And then he'll decide, supposedly, sometime in December, whether or not to completely dismiss the case or to go ahead and sentence Trump. He could sentence him, to prison, or he could sentence him he could postpone the sentence until after he serves his presidency, in which case he'll be old as fuck, and they'll probably say like, "Oh, well, he's too old to serve in
Yeah,
prison."
right.
Um, you know, it's just a so like his if he sentenced him before he was elected president, that would be sentencing someone regardless of the politics. Now that he has this pressure on him, oh, you're going to sentence the future elected president of the United States, that has a lot of politics involved. Okay. And it
Hmm.
has a lot of, um, implicit threat involved because Trump has made it very clear that he wants to seek revenge and seek vengeance upon people who went after him.
Oh, of course.
And so, that is, probably the worst reasoning by a judge that I've ever seen, aside from, the Supreme Court decision that basically declared that president is allowed to do whatever he wants as long as it's an official act and it's not a crime. But so we're gonna see a lot of I guess we're probably gonna see a lot of postponing and kicking the can down the road.
Yep, that's what it
Um,
sounds like.
or he might just decide, oh, let's just give him a light sentence and say, the conviction stands and we're just not going to really do anything, in terms of having him serve prison time. I mean, like, how could you how could you postpone it until after the election and then decide? Like any other criminal defendant, you would just give the sentence and that's it.
Right? Like,
Um,
I
but
don't
now
understand
you're
this shit,
having to
man.
weigh in, the fact that he's elected president. That was a mistake, I think, on the judge's part. And there's no way to put that genie back in the bottle now. It's too
Yeah,
late.
it's too late now. It's a really good point. It's freaking depressing, is what it really is. Let me ask you guys this too. Let me know what you think here. We survived the first Donald Trump presidency, but of course, he didn't have his minions and all of his crones in there. And you do realize that basically the 4 years past, he really didn't do jack shit, especially in his first two. You know what I mean? Do you think that that's like wishing for the best? But do you think something like that could happen this term? Like he's just going to do a lot of talking and a lot of yelling and a lot of accusing, but probably nothing will get done and nothing will happen. And then we'll just end up moving along. Or do you think maybe this time he's going to, I mean, you're going to see some serious damage done?
I think that we're actually going to see some damage done.
I agree with you that I do. This
He has
time I
all the
think we're going
cronies
to,
in the right spot this time.
because no one's there to say no.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's the
He
problem.
basically has the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court. He's got cronies all over the country in different states and different positions to lean
They're all
into
yes
his
men,
agenda.
you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I don't know what they think they're going to get out of it, but it ain't going to be much, if
Right?
anything.
What do you think, Rook? You think that this time we're going to see some pretty devastating shit or like some really abnormalities here or
Well, I actually do think that there was damage done last time. There
well,
was
yeah,
damage
there was.
done
That's
in
true.
terms of January 6th.
Right.
Her Capitol was broken into and vandalized, and the peaceful transfer of power was interrupted for the first time in our nation's history. That reduced our standing in the world in terms of whether we are viewed as a competent and stable democracy to both our partners around the world and our adversaries. So that is something that, can't be undone. We also saw Trump do damage in terms of pulling out of the Paris Accord
Right.
for
That's true. I forgot about
you
that.
know, for emissions. So we Biden put us back in it
Right.
after Trump pulled out of it after Obama got us in it.
You think
So
we're coming
like
back out again?
so he already said that he's going to pull
Jesus.
back out,
This
and
country's
so
never going to
that
see any
no
straight
like
short path.
that damages our relationships with every country because they cannot trust us. We have
Right.
we don't keep our word. We signed on. Now, for people that don't know, we signed on to the Paris Accords. We're not like some radical country or outlier. Almost every country in the world signed on to this. There were only like maybe like 3 or 4 countries that didn't, and those countries are countries like Iran and like
Yeah.
you know countries like that. Even Russia signed on.
Yeah, I think even right. You're
Uh,
right. Russia's even
China
in there.
signed on. Um, so North Korea, I think, was another one of them. So we're not in good company when we're not in that Paris Accord. And so I think that saying that we're going to be in it and then 4 years later getting out, and then 4 years later getting back in, and then 4 years later getting out, that really says to other countries that they cannot rely upon our word because our decision, our commitment will change as soon as a president in the opposing party gets in office, which
Right.
is possible every 4 years.
One thing I will say too, I do redact my last statement because one major thing that he fucked up and took away was the reproductive rights for women. That was one. That was another major thing that he destroyed. So I
Right.
actually forget that I even said that earlier because that's not the case. I think what I meant by that was just it could have, I mean, don't get me wrong, what he did was already enough damage, but it could have been even more. Now I think we're going to see that even more. And if I'm not mistaken, too, wasn't that Charlottesville thing in the beginning? Remember, fine men on both sides?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so right, yeah. So that was that too. So yeah, he's just a fucking mess, and
Oh
I hate
no,
to
no,
say
no.
it.
But if we're talking about lasting permanent effects, like there's no way to like say, oh, countries, now that we have a Democrat in office, trust us, they'll
Right?
keep their word because we can't guarantee it anymore. It
Nah.
used to be the case that, when you make a decision, an international agreement, a decision as a country, the president was elected and he is our representative abroad. And, when you have the Senate and the president agree to uh, something with other countries, and it's negotiated over the course of many painstaking months, then those countries deserve to know that we won't just go back on our word. And
Exactly.
right now, and perhaps in for the foreseeable future, they will not be able to trust us on anything because if we can't be trusted to stay in an agreement, which virtually every other fucking country is in,
Yeah, for real.
why would they trust us on anything? There's no good reason to.
No.
I think the stem of all of this was the fact that the Justice Department dragged their ass in getting him in for questioning, evidence, whatever, to get the trial started. It's only after he said, "I'm going to become president," that everyone started backing off because they didn't want to seem like it was election interference. They should have nabbed his ass the day he became a citizen. And
I mean, yeah,
honestly, though, the whole January 6th thing, we all saw it. We all knew what it was. You didn't have
right.
to. You don't have to spell it out.
And there's tape in case you forgot, right? Like,
He should have been. He should have been arrested by the FBI like almost immediately. While they combed through the evidence. I mean, I know innocent until proven guilty, but I mean, he looked pretty damn guilty to me.
Yeah.
But I mean, they danced around it, and and then he made
Right.
it like, oh well, he doesn't have to be, held accountable for his actions. So now, from what I've learned from this election or in the last 8 years, is that politics trumps law all the time.
That's
I don't mean to make a pun,
really.
but like it doesn't matter what they do, politicians will get away with anything.
You know what else too? I'm coming to terms with. Speaking of which, when you reflect on just the past 10 years, say what I'm seeing now, and I think we're probably you'll see this in a future episode at some point. But I feel like anytime there's elections now, you have the Democrats that will accept the results, even if they lose. But the Republicans only accept it when they win. But when they lose, then January 6th happens, you know what I mean? Or some bullshit conspiracy theory that, the game is rigged, you know what I mean? So, like, I feel like if this rhetoric continues moving on in the upcoming years, like the next election, Trump technically cannot be president. You can only serve 2 terms.
What they successfully
how is this going to work now,
What they successfully did in the last 10 years is they watered down the justice system.
Yeah.
To the point that, you can basically explain away anything. Oh, well, we won't put him in jail because maybe he's too old. Slam his ass in jail.
Yeah, right.
I don't care how old he is.
That's why that sitting president thing too, that's such bullshit. You know what I mean?
Well,
That's an enabling.
I get the sitting president thing because you don't want to interrupt any kind of international going on.
If you got somebody committing crimes, doing illegal activity, fucking throw his ass in jail.
We have a vice president ready to take over for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole point.
Like, get him the fuck out of there.
Yeah, but then you're gonna start having people frame people for that kind of stuff.
Framing is different than doing.
And like, you have a trial, you weigh the evidence, and a jury can either convict or acquit.
Right. And if you're guilty, then goodbye.
The whole thing about justice is, blind and raped and everything. It's just, they did a number on her this last 4 years. I have no faith in the justice system. I have no faith in the government.
I have no faith in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court
that too.
revealed itself.
I agree with all of you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
The three branches of government need to be pruned.
We didn't even get to Linda McMahon. You know what I mean? So
who knows who Linda McMahon is?
Yeah. So I mean, we could say
you say the name, and I'm like, Vince McMahon.
Yeah. Well, it is his wife. It's his ex-wife.
Oh God, seriously?
She's running the Department of Education now.
No joke.
No. I swear to God, this country's going to become idiocracy before we know it.
We already are there for that.
No, we're not there. We're creeping in the door. It's going to be a large party to get there, but Rondo, the thirst annihilator.
All right, everyone. And that's all we got for this week. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. New episodes of Strange Planet will be on YouTube every Friday. And the final season of America is coming. Season 47. God help us all. Peace. See you next week.